Serial killers during wartime. Are you one of those curious minds intrigued by their dark stories? So are we. It turns out several exploited the chaos and blackouts of war to carry out their heinous acts, yet these killers often remain obscure in history due to the overwhelming events of their time. We believe they warrant attention. Let's examine three individuals, two men and one woman, who used the turmoil of war as a cover for their horrific crimes. Gordon Frederick Cummins, the Blackout Ripper. Gordon Cummins was a young, charismatic RAF airman with a superiority complex and a preference for targeting sex workers. Despite his working-class background, Cummins adopted a refined accent after joining the RAF in the mid-1930s, earning the nickname the Duke. Beneath his charming facade lurked a sinister, murderous sexual urge that later earned him the moniker the Blackout Ripper. In February 1942, London was engulfed in the Blitz. Air raid shelters dotted the landscape, and the vibrant lights of the West End were extinguished, creating shadowy corners perfect for concealing violent acts. On February 9th, electrician Harold Batchelor discovered the body of 41-year-old Evelyn Hamilton outside an air raid shelter entrance. A stranger to the city, Hamilton's murder left investigators with no leads, unaware that the killer was only beginning. 6 days later, 3 more women were dead, and London had a new serial killer etched in its history. Hamilton's murder was merely the prelude. Evelyn Oatley, a nightclub hostess, was found in her Wardour Street flat with her throat slashed and body mutilated. Margaret Lowe, known as a lady for her elegant demeanor, was disemboweled in her home. Doris Juanet was strangled with a stocking, her body discovered by her husband. It was then that police realized the serial killer was at large. Cummins, undeterred, sought his next opportunity. After charming Margaret Haywood at a bar, he lured her down unlit streets and attacked her in a doorway. As she fought back desperately, 18-year-old John Shine investigated commotion, causing Cummins to flee, leaving behind his RAF gas mask, a critical clue. Still driven to kill, Cummins later attempted to attack Catherine Mulcahy at her home that night, but she resisted and fled to her neighbors, screaming for help. They watched in shock and horror as Cummins stumbled to her flat, muttering about drinking too much and offering her 8 one-pound notes, seemingly to buy her silence. He then visited another bar, secretly pocketing another man's RAF mask, intending to claim they had been swapped by mistake. However, Cummins' spree left a trail of evidence. The gas mask he abandoned pointed police to their prime suspect. Further investigation uncovered several victims' belongings in his quarters, and serial numbers from his pay packet matched the money given to Mulcahy. After a week of terror, Cummins was arrested on Valentine's Day, 1942. He was later convicted of all 4 murders and suspected in 2 additional cases, though he never learned of these accusations. On June 25, 1942, Gordon Frederick Cummins, the Blackout Ripper, was executed by hanging. Leonarda Chaunchley, the soapmaker Correggio. Leonarda Chaunchley reportedly displayed signs of severe mental illness from childhood. Married to a government clerk during World War I, the couple later settled in Correggio, where Chaunchley's deteriorating mental state led to deadly consequences. Years earlier, a fortune teller had delivered a grim prophecy. You'll have many children, but they will all die young. Tragically, this seemed to hold true. Out of 17 pregnancies, only 4 children survived, fueling Chaunchley's obsessive fear of losing them. When World War II erupted in 1939 and her son Giuseppe was conscripted, Chaunchley became determined to ensure his survival. Working as a fortune teller and matchmaker, she devised a gruesome plan, believing human sacrifice was the only way to protect her son. Her first victim was 50-year-old Faustina Setti, who sought Chaunchley's matchmaking services in the distant province of Pola. Hopeful and carrying her life savings, Setti knocked on Chaunchley's door, only to meet her demise by Chaunchley's axe. Offering Setti a glass of drugged wine, Chaunchley waited before dismembering her into 9 pieces and draining her blood. To dispose of the body, Chaunchley stuffed the remains into pots with alum, rosin, and 10 pounds of caustic soda, boiling them until, as she later described, the pieces dissolved into a thick, dark mush that she poured into buckets and emptied into a nearby septic tank. Taking a page from Sweeney Todd, Chauncey mixed the coagulated blood into crunchy tea cakes, which she served to her friends and Giuseppe. Her next victim, Francesca Soavi, came to Chauncey under the pretense of a job offer. Then, Virginia Cassiopo, a retired soprano, was lured with a promise of employment. Both met the same fate. Chopped up and turned into soap. Chauncey's spree ended when Cassiopo's sister-in-law reported her disappearance and last known location, Chauncey's home. Police raided her soap-filled residence, and Chauncey confessed immediately, declaring she would do it again to protect her son. She was sentenced to 3 years in a criminal hospital and 30 years in prison, where she died of cerebral apoplexy. No, she wasn't turned into soap. That was a jest. Marcel Petiot, Dr. Satan. In Nazi-occupied France in 1944, another murderer's activities came to light. Meet Marcel Petiot, deemed mentally unstable from a young age. He was expelled from school multiple times and later charged with damaging public property and petty theft, though deemed unfit to stand trial. Despite his issues, Petiot was drafted during World War I. By 1916, he was on the front lines, suffering multiple nervous breakdowns and psychiatric hospitalizations, culminating in him shooting himself in the foot. Discharged from the Army, he earned his medical degree in 1921. When World War II broke out, Petiot joined the French resistance, providing the perfect cover for his crimes. He began targeting vulnerable individuals, addicts, sex workers, and desperate people who visited him and vanished. Posing as a savior for those fleeing Nazi persecution, Petiot offered safe passage to Argentina, becoming a beacon of hope that instead led to death. Petiot operated unchecked until March 11, 1944, when a foul stench and smoke billowed from his home near Paris's Étoile district. French police entered and were thrust into a scene from a nightmare. Petiot's residence was no home. It was a slaughterhouse. Discarded belongings, blood-stained tools, disturbing contraptions, and body parts marked each room as a torture chamber. In the basement, 2 coal stoves contained human remains, one still burning. In the stables, a pit brimmed with countless unmatched body parts, submerged in quicklime. The exact number of victims was impossible to determine, but their dismemberment bore a striking resemblance to bodies dumped in the Seine 2 years earlier. As police stood reeling, Petiot appeared, posing as his brother. He claimed, "The bodies you've seen are those of Germans and traitors to our country. I am the head of a resistance group and have 300 files at my home that must be destroyed before the enemy finds them." This, combined with distrust of Nazi occupiers, led French police to hesitate, following minor leads and delaying the pursuit, giving Petiot ample time to flee. By April 1944, Petiot's collaborators, including his wife and brother, were arrested. Petiot was eventually traced back to Paris, where he too was apprehended. Throughout his trial, the murderous doctor maintained his innocence, attributing his actions to resistance efforts and claiming responsibility for killing only 19 Germans and collaborators. However, at least 26 bodies were linked to him, though the true number was likely higher. The jury, unconvinced, sentenced Marcel Petiot to death. In May 1946, the resistance doctor was executed by guillotine, smiling until the end.